Hello, everybody. This is Professor Frick. I'm going to give you, in this video, short examples of what you can do and not do in Codio, because a number of people are having problems. Most of the problems they're having come down to not understanding the punctuation or spelling. So let's get started. Let's look first at Lab 1, which is a very simple start. Most people got this right, but what they missed is some of the particular quirks of Codio, or MySQL actually. So I'm going to copy this command, a very simple create table, and use this as our starting point. So going over to Codio, first thing I want you to notice, which is not really the topic of this video, but if you happen to get this white screen over here, click the collapse button, and that'll give us a lot more room to work. Right now, most of the assignments have relatively narrow lines across here, but in later commands, when you do later modules, when you do some big selects, you're going to need this room to see what's going on. So I'm going to first, let me get in and create a database Frick. And it says it already exists. I forgot that I had created one earlier. If you see this error and see that you get a database exists, what you can do is say show databases to confirm it's there, and there it is. And then you could say use Frick and say show tables. And so I can now see, oh, I can't type very well, excuse me, tables. And it shows that there are no tables in there. Okay, when it says empty set, that means we have no tables. If we had picked another database that had tables, it would list them. So let's go ahead and go back to our module 1, copy this command, and come into Codio. Now, hit the enter. It says we're okay. Now the query, when it says query okay, you know it's succeeded. When it says 0 rows, that means you haven't put in any rows. And we can see that it's there by saying show tables. And now we can see table DB2. Now the first thing I want everybody to look at is the format of create tables right here and how that works. So I'm going to flip over to Notepad and dissect this command. Create table and the name of the table you want to give it. Then notice it has a set of parentheses starting here and ending here. Another way to look at this is inside these parentheses is your column list. And this is a very short list. You have to close with a semicolon. And if you write your commands like this, and you really wouldn't have to because this is a short command, but if you wrote them like this, it then looks very much like this command. And you know that this is working because you see down here 4 spaces, a dash, and a greater than. That's a normal MySQL prompt. And if we hit enter, I'm going to get an error only because it already exists. But this was a legitimate command in here. It just didn't work because of the table already exists. Now going back to that command, every create table has got to have these elements. Create table in a name, an opening and closing parentheses, and a table list. And in fact, I recommend when you're building these, you type in create table, and then whatever you want to call it, name. And I do this myself because I forget all the time to add that, to close this parentheses. And then what I do is like this, and you're ready to build your column list. Okay. Now notice that you have to give it a column name, space, and a data type. Every column has got to have those two items. There are a few more things you can put in there, but for right now, let's go with this: column name and table list. So let's look at module 2 and make this a little more complicated. Okay. I'm going to copy this command for create table. I'm going to type it in. Let me just move that up a little bit and hit enter. Query OK, so your table's created, 0 rows, we haven't input anything, and we've created this table. Again, you could see this with the show tables command, and there's employee. Now let's look at this command a little bit closer. I've gone ahead and copied that over here. Now, the way that it shows on the template looks like this part over here, where the 2 parentheses that you need are in there. And you can format these or type them in any fashion you want, but I reformatted it to show you clearly you've got to have an opening parentheses, a closing parentheses, and a colon, and then you have all your columns. Notice that every column has a name and a data type, and it's followed by a comma, except the last one. This comma basically says, here's a column, how to define it, comma. Here's the next column, how to define it, comma. Here's the next column, comma, how to define it. Okay. Now I'm going to add one more table to show you one little thing. You could type it in this fashion. You could type it in lengthwise, or you can type it with these spaces, whichever you prefer. As long as all your typing is correct, you can keep typing and you'll get this MySQL prompt right here with the dash. And you notice that worked also. So now I have 2 tables for employees, table 1 and table 2. Now, I mentioned earlier, however you want to put in these parentheses, you can do that. So this is still a legitimate command. As long as your command's legitimate, it'll let you run it on. So let's go over now. Oh, one other thing. What throws some people are these extra parentheses. Like they look at this right here and they'll say, oh, I've already got a parentheses there, but they forget to add this one. That's why I like to do this, so that you have this parentheses, you can clearly see you closed this parentheses right here. Now you'll notice, talking about the data types or definitions, you have small int, you have varchars, and you have decimals. Notice that the decimal, you have to give it 7 for the total, comma 2. Every time you have a decimal, you got to give it 2 digits. For the other commands, you just put in a varchar 10 characters long. Now, let's create an error here. And I'm going to leave out this comma. And I'll show you what to do about that. Okay, so I create table employee 2, and I left a comma out right here between these. So I come down here, I hit enter, and now I've got an error statement. Most of the time, when you have an error statement, MySQL is going to try to interpret it, and it'll tell you that you have a syntax error near decimal salary decimal 7,2. And we can start here in our command and look backwards. Now, just a warning on this, sometimes you can have an error up here, but it will give you that the error is near a later command. So you have to start and then work your way back. Now, very quickly, we can see we're missing a decimal right here when we look at that. And so we can go back to our notepad, add the comma, and then it'll work now. So that covers most of this. Now, just remember that you have to give it a name, give it a data type, give it a comma for every column. Put it inside the open and close parentheses for the column list. Don't put a comma on the last command. Now I tell you, let's do one more error. I'm going to leave the colon off. I forget to put a colon many times when I'm doing commands. Novices do also. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a command. And I haven't hit enter yet. Here is a list of the typing. Now notice that it gave me the dash greater than. And if I just keep hitting the command, it doesn't, or hitting enter, it doesn't finish the command. I can hit a semicolon and it runs. Now I've got 3 tables or more. Whoop, I forgot my colon there, my semicolon there. So I'll do my semicolon, and now you can see I've got employee 1, employee 1, employee 3. So that is ending a command. Okay. Now let me know if you'll have any questions on this, and refer back to this video, and this gives you the basics of typing in the commands. So we will go ahead and quit, and we're done at this. You can close Codio.